Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Champs Drink Champs podcast. I am your host, Shelby, and I am here for a solo episode today. So you are in for a lucky, lucky treat. I apologize that my voice is a bit crunchy, I guess I would say. We had a girls' weekend in Mesquite for Taylor and I's birthday and our friend Chelsea because we're all Leos, and my friend Chelsea and Taylor also have the same birthday, so I think that's really cool. But we were in Mesquite drinking our booties off and also in a casino full of cigarette smoke. So I think that that's maybe why my voice is really crunchy since I've been back. Maybe it's partially allergies. I don't know. I'm blaming it on the retirees smoking in the casino. So yeah, life update really quick. Like I said, we just went to Mesquite. That was super fun. Life has been out of control busy per usual. And the kids are back in school. So Henley started third grade, which I think is so wild. Jaden is turning 18 this weekend. So I'm gonna have a freaking adult child, and that's so weird. I haven't gotten too sad about it yet. I think I last year had like this moment where I separated a lot of my like stressors away from this parenting cycle that we were in, and that's been really helpful. But I think it's also probably made it so I don't have the forethought of like the sadness that's probably going to hit me come Saturday when he turns 18. So I think that's very wild that I'm gonna have an 18-year-old and I just turned 33. So super crazy. I'm about to head to Vienna again next week for work. Work is kicking my ass with busyness, and I'm loving every second of it, but also hating every second of it. And Wally and I are celebrating our 12th wedding anniversary this weekend. So life is full of crazy celebrations in August. Only the best for sure. And yeah, I guess I'd say that's my update. The only other thing I would say is like parenting is freaking hard, man. Yesterday I had different parenting moments with my children. One about being nice and like not a mean kid, even though your feelings are hurt, resulting in tears. And another is my son having like heartbreaks and crying his eyes out, having panic attacks. So I just really got the full spectrum. And I went to bed feeling very stressed and very sad for my children. And I was just thinking like how lucky we are that we have the internet that has resources, because I was Googling the shit out of that. I was like, how do I help a teen navigate heartbreak? How do I help a child with sadness, with mean friends? Like, or to not be a mean friend, like just so many things. And like parents back in the day just did not have these resources. So if you run into parenting things and you're like, I have no idea how to parent this, Google it first before you ever respond to your children. It will save your freaking relationship. And that is a fun fact for you today. So, yeah, like I said, life is crazy busy. It's been moving so fast this entire year. Starting a new job has totally put me in this new realm of like chaos that I had not experienced for a few years. And the reason I'm bringing that up again is because our topic today that I wanted to talk to you guys about is burnout phases and completing your stress cycle. So I had a therapy session almost 2 months ago about this exact topic, because I basically was just like, I feel like I am literally dead inside and falling apart. I have no idea what's going on. I have no energy or care to like even be part of what's going on. Like I'm going through life. It feels like I'm just like up here in a cloud and life is passing me by and I'm here and I'm present, but I don't have the joy. I don't have the empathy. I don't have the excitement. I'm just like here. And that was like super hard for me to like admit, I think, but it was like the truth, it was exactly how I was feeling, because life has just been kicking my butt and it's been go, go, go. And I knew it was wearing me down, and I just didn't know what that meant or why it was happening. I thought it was like other things I was processing. I have no idea. And so this topic came up in my session, and my therapist was like, you're in burnout. And I was like, I mean, yeah, people always say that, but like, is it burnout or is it just like, am I depressed? Like, what is going on? And so she broke it down for me basically in like the most eye-opening way. And for me, I'm someone that like, I need to connect the dots. As soon as I can label something, identify something, say what it is, connect the why, put the puzzle pieces together, it's so much easier for me to be able to work through something or understand it or be able to like deal with it. It's the unknown things that just like I have to figure out the solution so that I can reach a conclusion. Like that's just how my brain works. It's constantly in that phase of like, okay, here's the logistics of the situation. I treat everything like it's business basically. So that's what brought us to this topic. And she was like, there's like this thing called the burnout phases. Do you know what those are? And I was like, no, not really. And then she also brought into it the aspect of needing to complete your stress cycle with that to be able to deal with burnout and not be in burnout. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is either. So some of these concepts come from a book that she mentioned to me. It's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. I will for sure post that when this episode comes out so that you guys can get that link because I have not read it yet. I know I really should. I shouldn't be here having this conversation with you guys. Just kidding. I should because I have a freaking podcast. Anyways, sorry, I just have to be a smartass sometimes. Yeah, the book sounds really great. It has a lot of the concepts, but I don't know if hers goes into the 5 phases. My therapist gave me 5 phases. And there's normally like 4 that people talk about on the internet. So I do plan to read that book. I'm hoping to listen to it on my flight to Vienna, actually. But yeah, I'm basically going to share this insight that I learned from her because it was so helpful. Like having that therapy session, like gave me everything I needed to start unlocking what was going on. And like, now I feel so much better. Like, I feel like I'm actually enjoying life, even though I'm going crazy still. I have more tools in my toolbox that I think can help me not get in these phases that I'm in, that I continue to get in, because this is something that happens to me all the time. Like I am going through this all the time. And I was like, I just want to stop getting back into these cycles. Like I want to identify them and deal with them rather than ignoring it and moving on. So basically what she told me is that there's these 5 phases of the burnout cycle. And then she also told me about this stressor or completing your stress cycle. That's what it is. And I was like, not understanding how they connected. But then as she broke down the phases for the burnout cycle, it totally made a lot of sense. So I'm going to teach you guys what she taught me. I know there's plenty of resources out there that could be different, have different pieces to this. I'm not trying to say that this is my insight. This is what I came up with. This is definitely not from me. This is from my therapist, probably other people on the internet, and this book. So, all right. The 5 stages of burnout. So the first phase is the on fire phase, or like, I feel like I'm in my honeymoon phase. You like have this feeling where you are on top of the world, where it's just like everything's going great. I'm so happy. Life is fucking good. That is the on fire phase. This is the time when you are like probably in a really good space for sure, but there's probably some things like something good is happening and you're like, everything else is no longer a problem because I'm on top of the world. But the problems that you still hadn't addressed are like totally still back here, probably creeping up, because we all know what they say, the honeymoon phase does not last, baby. So after the honeymoon phase, you would then move on to the next stage, which is the onset of stress. And this one to me, I was like, she was explaining it. She said the onset of stress is like distractions. You're distracting yourself, or you're feeling really distracted. You can't really focus. You have more fatigue. You're not sleeping. You're kind of getting loosey on like things that you want to do, like your goals, working out, your routines, like some of that's starting to slip. And I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I know when this starts happening. I know when I start doing this. And she was like, okay, that's perfect. So if you are the same as me and you start recognizing these things in yourself, like your habits, all of that, this is a super important stage for you to like remember. So basically she said that this is the moment on stage 2 when you need to catch your burnout, Otherwise, it will creep into the next stages. And that's when it's really, really hard to get out of it. And that's when it just turns into like almost a like a freaking volcano, basically, of like, this is just going to happen. So in this stage, this is when you should complete your stress cycle. And we will go over the stress cycle as soon as I finish the phases, because I don't want to get distracted and then like make you guys really fucking confused. So basically, stage 2, onset of stress. This is when we need to come back to completing our stress cycle so that we don't carry into phase 3, 4, and 5. So moving on to phase 3, when you do not complete your stress cycle and you ignore the things that are coming up that are going to add to your burnout, is going to lead you to the chronic stress phase. And holy shit, do I know that phase. So basically, this is when people are always like, yep, we're just living in this. This is just what we have. Like, this is just life now. That's kind of the energy. That's like, you're in your stress era. You're in your era of like, this is just what's going to go on. I can't do anything about it. I just live here now. You start showing up late to work or late to functions or not going to functions. You don't really want to socialize anymore. You have a lack of motivation. You start to feel a little bit more withdrawn. You start looking for reasons to be angry with people or upset with people, so you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to go hang out with them. You don't have to like really be involved in their lives or the conversations. And you just start feeling way more exhausted, way more snippy. You're not communicating. That is all in phase 3. So as you're living in your chronic stress phase, which God, I hate living in that phase, you then move into number 4, which is burnout. And this is when you feel like you can't keep going. You have a lot of self-doubt. You hate your job. You hate yourself. You're feeling really negative about so many things. Like, life is going so terribly. Like, nothing can go right. You feel sad a lot. You start to feel numb. You get way more anxiety. You start to have some panic attacks. This is when you can start getting chest pains. Like, hello, that was me for like 3 years at my last job. And I had no clue how long I had been like living in this phase, but the chronic stress phase and burnout phase were so severe that I would reach a certain point in my drive and immediately get like a chest pain and not even realize what it was. I just kept being like, dang, maybe my pre-workout is like starting to give me like a heart attack lately. I have no idea. Like, it wasn't until I started to really unravel my life that I realized, like, holy crap, every time I reached a certain point in my drive, I get this insane chest pain, and it was chest pains from anxiety. So that's kind of some stuff you can look out for when you're in your burnout phase. And then as you continue to ignore all of these things, because you can get out of your burnout phase. So if you don't get out of your burnout phase, you then move into number 5, which is habitual burnout phase. And this one is definitely, it's who you are. It's how you live your life. This is me. This is it. This is what you get. I'm a bump on a log and take it for what it is. That's the energy it's giving. This one, some signs for this one could be severe anxiety, depression, fatigue, forgetfulness. You're disassociated. Your mental, physical, and emotional well-being are completely declining. You have no sense of purpose or hope or like really care for goals in the future. And when I tell you that I was for sure in stage number 5, a couple months ago, I was for sure in stage number 5. I was like, I don't write my gratitude journal. I don't even care what my next 10 years brings me. I don't have goals right now. I don't have any care about those things because I can't even mentally think about them or have any hope for this type of stuff. And that's kind of like what I had said to her. I was just like, I feel like I'm just here. I feel like I have no purpose. I'm like, I have all these amazing things happening. I should be so excited. And at the end of the day, I'm just like so frustrated. Like, I kept telling Wally, like, I have all of these amazing opportunities happening and we're going to be so busy and like, it's so many cool things, but none of them feel like they're for me. It's me showing up because I need to for work or for other people's things. And none of it feels like it's giving me what I need so that I can relax, so that I can feel like I can finally calm down. And yeah, so I was for sure in that phase. So and this is just a cycle that you'll keep repeating over and over and over again. And you'll go through this every single year, couple months, couple days, couple weeks, whatever. Some people's cycles can be really short. Some people's can be long, like mine, where you basically just live like this. And I basically go through it every single year. And I think we did an episode last season about like being in a rut, maybe it could be season 1, but I think it was season 2. And I thought it was just like a rut. And part of it probably was, but now that I look back, like hindsight is 2020, I was for sure in this like habitual burnout phase. And had I known then what I know now, I probably could have fixed it a lot easier. So now that you know all these things, now what do you do? Well, I have notes for you, baby. Let's move on. Okay. So now that you know those phases, a couple things that she told me, and like this is seriously not like a comprehensive list. This is like the short list I got in my 1-hour therapy session. We have an episode about burnout that could be really helpful for you. I'll make sure I link that and reshare that one for you guys so you can go back and listen to that too if you want. But some of the things that she said to me that I can use to like, now what I've identified that I'm in this burnout phase, I'm habitual burnout, chronic burnout bitch, like that's who I am. What can I do? And she basically gave me some tips of like, I need to identify what my limitations and my communication are. So, I need to make sure that I know what my limits are, which is really hard for me because I will take everybody's stress, every burden, whatever, and I will just take it and I'll handle it because it's easier and I know it will get done and I don't have to stress about it because my brain will still stress about it. So I need to identify what my limitations are and I need to communicate what those limitations are. I need to identify what my stressors are. Sometimes that can be coming home and being overstimulated by a lot of sounds and having TV on and no one's watching it. Like literally so many dumb things. People getting something out and not putting it away. That's a stressor for me. Enneagram 1, holla at your girl. So I need to identify what my stressors are. I also need to identify when I start to shut down. So when I start noticing that like, hey, I think I'm in this phase, something's stressing me out. If I don't deal with it, I'm going to go into the cycle. So I need to start identifying when I shut down. So what point do I hit with certain things? And I think that kind of ties into identifying my stressors. Like at what point do I choose to just be like, all right, whatever, and keep going? Because that's what I will do. I will always keep going. So identifying when I shut down, and then identifying when I stop communicating and why, because communicating is a big thing that I let go when I start to get burnout. Like I don't want to talk. It's harder for me to share information. It's like the last thing I want to do is come home and talk to the family. It's the last thing I want to do is like share a story. Those are big red flags for me because talking or conversating is like something that I actually don't love to do a lot. And when I'm overstimulated or I'm stressed out or I'm starting to get burned out, like the first thing that will go is me sharing information about my life with my husband or my kids or talking to them. Like my car rides with them will be totally quiet because it's just like, please, everyone stop talking. So those were some of the things that she gave me as tips to identify that can help me start working on those things. The last one was identify what self-care I've been doing, if I've been doing it. So that's one. Okay, so now that we are here, our next step in the therapy session and my TED Talk was ways to help before burnout. So these are things that you can do, like as you're starting to notify these things, things that you can do to basically stop before you get into phase 3. So identify and complete your stress cycle. That's for sure number 1. That's going to save you so much like stress, heartache, pain, wasted time, all of it. If you can just really focus on that once we get to that portion of it, like I think that will be really helpful, especially for myself. Hold on, let me take a drink of water. Are you guys surprised it's not champagne? You should be. Okay, next one is on the list of ways to help before burnout is ways to cope with stress at work and home. Identifying those is going to be huge. So I don't personally know what things I can do to cope with stress at work or at home. I think I just a lot of times just take it in, ignore it, put it all inside of myself and carry it around for everyone. It's not my job to carry everyone's stress. It's not my job to carry my own stress half the time. Like I need to figure out how I can cope with it and how I can really like process it rather than just like putting it in a ball and putting it in our pockets. So the next one is identifying a better work-life balance. And that one was like a big one that when she said that, I was like, oh my God, seriously, that would be so helpful, because right now I'm so busy with work that I will wake up to work out in the morning, and I wake up at 4 or 5, and I'll wake up, and because the time difference in Vienna, I'll just start working. I'll take my pre-workout, I'll clean my kitchen, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to respond to this email or this chat that I just saw. Just like really get it out there, because then by the time I start working again later, they'll have responded and I can like deal with it. And I just like really don't have a boundary there. And that to me is like cutting into my work-life balance. Like I don't have that work-life balance. It's easy for me to shut down at 5. I'm for sure done. And that's because like I've got kids, I've got things I've got to do, I've got school. So that part's not hard, but the work-life balance when it comes to like my morning, that's taking away from my normal scheduled time for myself. That one's huge. And also like identifying like when work is cutting too much into my personal life. Like, have I taken any of my PTO? Do I need a mental health day? Why not take a day off and just like do some of the errands that I need to do? Like I have those perks for a reason and I should do it. So work-life balance, when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to work on this. Like stop spreading myself so thin. The next one is that can help you with not getting into number 3 of the burnout phase is self-care. That one was a big one. And I was like, well, I feel like I do that. And then I was like, you're right. Actually, I've stopped doing that. Or maybe I'm like not actually doing self-care. And we actually have an episode about that as well. Let me get my pen so I can make notes of the ones I'm going to reshare for you guys really quick. Sorry, I should have some like quick little music for you. But I don't. Hopefully we'll get sound effects soon because I really want them. Self-care episode and burnout. Okay. So with self-care, when we were talking about it, that was like, that one I think would be like the easiest one to do. And I'm like, that one's actually really hard for me. Like it's really hard for me to take time for myself. It's really hard for me to stop and relax. I have a very, very hard time relaxing. And sometimes I can be really good at it, but it's just like a very quick moment and it's not enough to like fix the habitual phase that I'm in. So the tips that she gave me for self-care, I'll come back to those. Let me finish the ways to help before burnout. So number 4 was self-care. Number 5, take breaks at home and work. And I think that one was huge. That was like, okay, I actually have gotten really bad at that. Like at work, I'm just working. Like now that I work from home, or now that my teams are smaller and I don't have people pulling like in my face in my office every day, like I literally will start working from like 8. I'll go in the kitchen, grab something to eat. I'll come right back in. I'll just keep working. And then I'm just like here, I'll get up to go pee sometimes. Like it is really bad. And so that was like something where I was like, okay, I need to like take my lunch. I need to see if people can go to lunch with me and like get out of the house and force myself to have lunch. At home, I need to take breaks. Like school, I know I need to do it, but I need to take care of myself right now. And so I was taking more time to basically go and like watch TV with the family or sit outside and have a glass of wine and enjoy the weather, because sunshine will really, really fix a lot of these things too. And also being out in nature, like that's a huge one for me that helps just like calm my stressors. So I did a lot of that after that therapy session. I was like, all right, I'm going to slow a little bit down at home and work. I will say that it's been 2 months and I'm back to struggling with that. And now that I'm saying this for the podcast, I need to work on that. So bitches, hold me accountable. The next one is have someone to talk to about all of these things, about your stress, about these feelings that you're having. It could be your therapist, it could be your friends, it could be your family, it could be your spouse, it could be whoever. Don't stress about it to your kids though, please, for the love of God. But basically you need to find someone that you can talk to about these things for support, someone that can hear what you're saying, and let them know, like, I'm not saying this because I want you to give me a bunch of solutions. I just need to say this out loud because I need to get it off my chest. That's part of why I love therapy, is like, I am such a thinker in my head. I'm processing so many things all day long of like, it's just who I am. Like I am so analytical, so logical, so matter of fact. I'm just always, always, always processing in my head. Like I've usually processed most of my things before I even get to therapy, but sometimes just saying it out loud is what I need to complete that cycle and close it and be like, okay, now I can deal with this. Because if you don't speak it out loud, it just sits there. I know that's part of why people journal too. Like journaling and speaking things out loud is how people can actually process and move forward. Keeping it all bottled up just keeps it there, no matter if you came to a resolution in your head. So find someone, feel free to always reach out to Taylor and I. Like that's part of why we have this podcast, like reach out to us in our DMs on the podcast, Instagram, or even just our personal ones. Like we'd love to just hear you out and like be a support for you if you need it. Sometimes I share these things with my husband, and sometimes I share them with my friends, and sometimes both. And sometimes I share them with just my friends and not Wally, because it's just easier to process and not have him take it personally or have him wonder if it's something that he's done. Like my friends will just hear me for what it is. And if you don't have that, let me help you. And the last one is deal with it when you start to notice it. And this one I'm really bad at. But basically, as you start having these things creep up, stop and deal with them. Like today I was just driving and I was like, okay, this is for sure creeping up. I need to reevaluate. Like I need to calm down. I need to figure out what's going on. I need to figure out how I can slow down, and how I can like recenter myself. So those are the ways to help before burnout. So back to what I was saying, the self-care thing, how I like don't really know what self-care could be. Like maybe I'm doing it, maybe I'm not. Like when she said it, I was just like, I don't know. Like self-care is just such a word these days. So one of the things that she was talking to me about was basically saying, well, first you need to figure out like, wow. Those that can't see me, sorry, my hair got a little crazy. She was saying that I need to figure out how to take my self-care, because although maybe you think I'm doing it, it's hard for me. It feels like a burden sometimes. It almost seems harder to do my self-care than to like just not do it. So she gave me tips on how I can take my self-care. And I don't know if other people struggle with this, but like sometimes for me, it's hard for me to basically like, hey, Wally, I need you to do this. And like in my mind, I should say, I'm starting to get like super overwhelmed. I'm like, feel like I'm running a million miles a minute. Can you please take this task? Or can you please take Henley for this thing? Or just take her out of the house? Like those would be things that I should do that would help with this a lot. Instead, I basically am just like, oh, can you take Henley to dance? And I don't say anything else. And she said it was really important to communicate that I'm intentionally needing some support in this moment, or I'm intentionally needing to communicate my need for this support or this help, or that I need some space to take self-care. So that was really interesting to me for her to point out, because I know that I struggle with that, or even with like friends or family. I'll just commit to things, or I'll just do things. And instead I don't really ever say like, I actually just need, like, I don't have the capacity to deal with this right now. And it's nothing against them. It's just more of like, I don't have brain space. I need to like take a step back. So she said, the tips I can use to take my self-care is that I need to communicate that I'm intentionally taking the time. I need to communicate the need for it. I need to let people know that I don't want company through it. So some people think that like, oh, you're going to go do this? Can I come with you? Like, oh, I think I'm going to go get a pedicure. And it's so quick for people like, oh my God, I need one too. Let's go. And most people will say yes, because like, yeah, it's fun to hang out with friends, but in their mind, they're like, dang, I was kind of doing that for myself. Like I kind of needed that space. And sometimes you say yes without even realizing like you just wanted that space by yourself. So really identify when you're wanting to have self-care and when you're needing it to be alone, because sometimes you can still have self-care with people. Or like I could sit in the backyard and just like relax, and it'd be great if Wally was there, but sometimes it'd be really cool for me to just do it by myself. Like sometimes on my front porch, I'll just go sit there and like stare. So if you have like a busy household, or you have like people in your life that really like to like, oh, you're not busy, let me come hang out with you. Or you're not busy, can I like, let's do something together. Like if you're needing something for yourself and you need to take some self-care time, make sure you communicate, like, and you can do it softly, like, I really do want to spend time with you. I actually really need some time alone for a minute, like some self-care time. I would like to like have some space. Again, can you take the kid to the park? Can you, whatever? Those are things that you can do. And then another one is make sure that you're scheduling your self-care and setting reminders for yourself to do it. So sometimes I have some reminders on my phone right now to like breathe, which sounds so stupid, but when I'm in a really stressful phase, I like don't take a lot of deep breaths. Wow, that sounded weird. I will sometimes be sitting there, I'm like, am I even fucking breathing? So I have to like have some reminders to be like, okay, like let's stop and like do some breathing so that you can calm down for a second, because I just go, go, go. And half the time I don't realize I'm not intentionally breathing. I'm just shallow breathing, and that's adding to my stress. It's not giving. Deep breathing helps so much to just calm your body. And then the last one she said is that I need to take it seriously. So this is your sign that you should also take it seriously. If you're anything like me, where you are doing it, but you're kind of not doing it, you need to be more intentional with it, blah, 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 blah. And then back to the last thing on self-care is what was really highlighted for me as well in that session. This was such an intense session. Now that I think about it, it was so many like life-changing epiphanies. Basically what we had talked about with it is that I just told her, I was like, I actually don't know what self-care works for me. Like I do things that people say are self-care. Sorry, the crunchy throat's creeping in. I do things that I'm like, oh yeah, this is self-care, but is that actually working for me? Is that actually filling my cup? And that was something that I was like, wow, I actually don't know if the things that I do are helping me or making it worse. Like I told her that I had a spa membership and I was getting massages and facials because I was like, oh yeah, those would be like really relaxing and like it's something I'm taking time out to do for myself. And then I was like, but now that I'm saying this out loud to you, I was like, part of why I was getting massages is in my mind, I'm trying to conquer my comfortableness of like being naked in a safe space because of my sexual trauma. I have a really hard time with things like that. Like it took me a long time to even be okay getting a massage, which I still sometimes struggle with, but I never would really get them and feel safe or feel like there wasn't something bad that was going to happen to me or feel comfortable with my body being exposed. And so unintentionally but intentionally, like I kind of knew I was doing that, but I kind of was like not, I was like, oh yeah, like a massage would be nice, like my body's really sore lately. But that every time I went there, I wasn't relaxing because I would be like processing so much of like, okay, they touched really close to your butt, they're not going to touch anything else, like it's going to be okay. Or like taking my robe off or even standing around in a robe with other people, like it's really freaking hard for me, and it makes me very uncomfortable to know that like my body is so close to being naked with a stranger, and I hope they're not thinking sexually about me. Like my sexual trauma makes me think a lot of these things. And so I told her that, and I was just like, oh, okay, like that's actually not serving me. That's actually like I don't have the time to schedule it. It's really hard for me to make sure I go. And then when I am going, I'm not fully relaxing. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm not. And like that's not serving me. So we sat there for a second trying to identify some self-care things, like what self-care works for me. And it was pretty obvious that I have no fucking idea. So she told me that I need to write out what self-care options I have that are available to me that would fill my cup back up, that would help me, and that would actually be serving me. And I was able to come up with one in the moment, and that was running. I think that's why that's always been like a very constant thing in my life. But I have noticed that when I'm in like a very habitual burnout phase, like the one where I'm basically just like not even a living human being, I don't run anymore. So there you go. But I have not taken the time to sit and write out what other things, and I really need to do that because I know that it's so beneficial. Like I said earlier, writing something out is going to help you so much more. Just thinking about it never actually completes your thought process. It never actually like gets it across the finish line. So talk about these things out loud, and if you can, like seriously sit down and write these things out. So I personally need to do that so bad. And I really, really want to do it. And I really want to promise that I will, but I have no freaking idea. But I really need to figure out what else I have. So that is that on the burnout situation. Oh, Let me get my other notebook because I have a lot of notes. So now let's talk really quickly about the stress response cycle. Basically, she just told me about the stress response cycle. Basically, what she broke down for me was when you hit this point of what's it called? Onset of stress. Once you hit this and you start having these stressors that you're identifying that are stressing you out or starting to creep in, the only way to actually deal with those is to complete the stress response cycle. If you only do a few steps of the stress response cycle, you never actually fix it. It's just like partially dealt with, and then it will stay back there until something else triggers that stressor. So we kind of went through that cycle and took some notes personally on it. So what she said is to complete your stress response cycle. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't transfer these notes because I was like, why am I rewriting all this? If the stressor, it feels like it's gone and you didn't do anything to keep dealing with that stress, like these next couple of steps, then the stress isn't actually gone. One of the best ways that you can actually release the stress or help the stressor be gone is to release it with physical activity. So I know Taylor talks about this all the time about how like yoga really like releases stuff in people in her classes, which is just such a weird concept to me, but I get it only because I've experienced that with running. So physical activity is a huge way for you to really release that stress. So I'm sure the internet has a million other ones, but my session was getting really close to ending. But I would say that one's a huge, huge one for me. Find something that's physical that you can do that's your self-care, that works for you. And I guarantee it will release these things. Like weightlifting is a huge one that people do. So that is one of the best ways that you can release it. The next one she said to complete my stress cycle is I need to identify my community and think about my community. Do they have energy that can help me relax? And if the answer is no, then my community is adding to my stress cycle. It's making me stuck in my stress cycle. I mean, it's basically another stressor that is not going to let my stress leave. So if you have a community that doesn't help you relax. So if you go into a space and you're like unable to relax, like really think about that. And if the answer is no, that's a huge one. Like I literally said to her, like shout out to Wally, but I was just like, there's times when like coming home, I feel more stressed because it's like, there's something him and I've been dealing with, there's something that's going on that adds more stress to me. She's like, then that's something that tells you right there, I need to go deal with this because this is going to keep me in my cycle. And if I keep ignoring it, then guess what? I'm headed into the burnout. So, figuring out if the people in your life have the energy that can help you relax or not. And energies are a huge thing. Another one she said is breathing techniques. She said that these are helpful, but they're a Band-Aid. Sorry, Taylor. They're a Band-Aid and they are not a real solution to complete your stress response cycle. It will help you in the moment. It will help you calm down so that you can get more thoughts. You can deal with other things, but breathing is a Band-Aid, and it doesn't fix it completely. So just doing breathing techniques will not fix your stress response cycle. Another one she said is laughter. It's a huge one, like a real deep laughter. Like the laughter I had on my girls trip where my abs and my cheeks were hurting. That's exactly the type of laughter, like finding experiences and having moments in your life where you can really truly laugh totally helps. So that almost kind of reminds me a little bit of like the physical activity thing where it like releases something and it just brings you true joy. The last one she gave me, wait, maybe there's another one, is, let's see. Oh, your social connections. Looking at your social connections and the people you're socially hanging out with, kind of your community too, that can heal or help your nervous system. So when I asked her kind of like, how would I know? Because I was kind of like, I don't know if they can help or heal my nervous system. I don't even fully understand my nervous system. And she said, here's some things that you can ask yourself. Do they know how to help me when I'm not my best? And I was like, there's some people for sure no. Like they almost just make it worse. And she's like, okay, that's one for you to identify. Another one she said is, are they safe? And I was like, well, sometimes She's like, okay, that's another one. Your social connections aren't making you feel safe. And then do they bring me real joy or more sadness and more stress? And I was like, okay, this is really helpful. So this last one really helped me think about our episode again. Maybe I should share that one where we talked about your inner circle and evaluating your inner circle. But she basically said at that point, evaluate the people in your life. And if you have no, sometimes, or rarely, or anything like that on any of those 3 questions, and they aren't yes answers, then you really need to evaluate the people in your life and not spend time with those people when you're dealing with your stress response cycle or when you're in your burnout phase. So, that's kind of the tips and tricks she gave me to complete my stress response cycle. Like I said, I guarantee there's so much more information on the internet about this, and probably that book that I'm supposed to read, but I will make a cute little like content slide for you guys that you can save on Instagram. So you can always refer back to that. But I want to make sure that you know these questions to ask yourself, especially like, do they know how to help me? Are they safe? Do they bring me real joy? Or are they bringing me more sadness and stress? And then some of the other stuff we talked about. But yeah, that's all she wrote, folks. But it was a very helpful therapy session for me. I thought it was very impactful and something I really wanted to share with the rest of you, so that you can, if any of you are like me, hopefully this like rings true, that you're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And if any of you are not like me, hopefully you were able to still find something out of it that's helpful for you to understand and identify these, because it's actually proven that women have and experience burnout way more often than men. It's just something that we, I don't know, probably because we have to do all the things that are responsible and share all of the load ourselves. But women just go through it more. And so I thought it was really helpful. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Before I end, though, we have so many hashtag asking for a friend questions. I don't know what we're calling them anymore. Dear champs, drink champs, whatever. I still love hashtag asking for a friend. So I'm going to go with that. Hashtag asking for a friend. Do you have to speak your gratitude out loud for it to count? Honestly, I think the true answer is probably no. I think you can say it in your head, but I think it's important to speak it out loud. Just like I was saying in the episode, I think it's really important. I think there's really something to sharing things. I know for a fact that there's moments that I'll have like so much gratitude, like an immense amount of gratitude flow through my body for a person or a thing or a situation. And if I would just communicate to that person or like about the situation, like I guarantee it would make their freaking day. And going back to what else I said, I hate talking, I hate communicating. And so I'll always be like, oh, you should share this. And I don't. And maybe it would be more beneficial for me and others in my life if I did share the gratitude out loud sometimes. I don't think you always need it to be out loud, but I do think there's something to sharing it out loud. It helps other people, inspires other people, makes them feel good. It probably reminds you how good it made you feel. But I don't think you have to do it out loud for it to be like beneficial or make it come true or anything like that. To make it count. I think it's just the fact alone that you're like having that moment with yourself to be grateful, I think is huge. To take it one step further, sharing it out loud and sharing it with other people. Like when you share like how thankful you are for someone, it just makes them so much happier. And like them being happy then makes you even more happy. So answer is no, I would say, but you should do it. I think it's even better if you do it. So yeah, that is everything. I hope you enjoyed my solo pod. I really wanted to make it only like 30 minutes, but apparently I just talk way too fucking much. I did have a lot to say though. Make sure you're following us on Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're very excited to be back for season 3. And we would love to hear from you guys more on Instagram because it's just really fun interacting with you guys. So let us know how you like the episode and we will catch you next time. Have a great week, everyone.